All right, so today we're going to take a deep dive into something I think is pretty fascinating, the Hare Krishna movement.
Okay.
We've got excerpts from Science of Self-Realization, written by the movement's founder, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.
All right.
And you know what's wild is that this all started with a 69-year-old Swami landing in America with just $7
Wow.
and a trunk full of books.
Talk about a leap of faith.
Talk about a leap of faith. It
Yeah.
really makes you wonder what drove him.
Yeah, what possessed him to? 1965, he leaves a comfortable life in India, sails to Boston, and basically starts from scratch.
Right.
Imagine, at that age, sleeping on a mattress, washing his own clothes, all while tirelessly typing manuscripts for his 60-volume Srimad Bhagavatam.
Right.
That's dedication to a whole other level.
Yeah, not your average retirement plan.
No.
And it wasn't just about like personal growth for him. Yeah, he wanted to introduce Vedic teachings to the West.
Yeah.
And he did it with incredible speed.
Yep.
I mean, within a year, a congregation formed. His Hare Krishna chant recording took off. And San Francisco even declared Rath Yatra Day.
It's remarkable he wasn't focused on, building a following around himself, though.
Right.
He really pushed the idea of being God's servant, even criticizing gurus who let disciples worship them as God.
Interesting.
That humility is a key part of his teachings.
So let's get into the heart of its Krishna consciousness.
Okay.
This might seem like a big jump from chanting on the streets. What's the connection?
Well, you see those images of devotees chanting and dancing in the Rath Yatra procession. That's kind of an outward expression of Krishna consciousness, this idea of reawakening our innate connection with God, who they call Krishna.
Right.
The chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is meant to revive this connection within us.
Interesting. Is that similar to the idea of Christ consciousness? Are they ultimately pointing to the same thing?
There are definite parallels. Swami Prabhupada actually suggested that if you follow the true teachings of any religion, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, they can all lead to God consciousness.
Oh, okay. That makes me think about the whole guru thing.
Yeah.
How do you tell a genuine spiritual master from someone just seeking fame or fortune?
Yeah.
Especially in a new, unfamiliar movement.
He's very clear about that. A genuine spiritual master, according to Swami Prabhupada, is focused on teaching about God and cultivating love for God without ulterior motives.
Right.
It's not about personal gain. It's about guiding others towards a deeper spiritual connection.
Okay, so not all spiritual paths are created equal then.
Right.
What makes the path of Krishna consciousness unique?
Well, the book actually breaks down the goals of different spiritual seekers.
Okay.
You have karmis, who are focused on the material rewards of their actions. Think success, wealth, and status. Then there are jnanis who seek liberation from the cycle of birth and death. They're searching for ultimate freedom. Then you have yogis striving for mystic powers, looking to control the forces of the universe. Right. And finally, there are bhaktas, who are all about unconditional love for God.
Okay.
Their goal is pure devotion. So each path has a different destination, and Krishna consciousness is all about becoming a bhakta, a devotee of Krishna.
But if we're all inherently Krishna conscious, why don't we feel it? Why does it need to be reawakened?
Think of it this way. Our consciousness is like a glass of water. It's naturally pure, but it gets clouded with impurities over time. Through spiritual practices like chanting and studying scripture, we can filter out those impurities, revealing the inherent Krishna consciousness within.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So how does one actually live a Krishna conscious life? What are the day-to-day actions involved?
Service is at the heart of it.
Okay.
Not just serving others, but serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Swami Prabhupada stresses that this can take many forms.
Okay.
From societal and familial duties to national service. It's about aligning our actions with a higher purpose.
So it's not about renouncing the world and living in a cave.
Not necessarily. He compares our human form to a valuable boat for crossing the ocean of material existence.
Okay.
The spiritual master is the expert boatman guiding us to our spiritual destination. We use our time in this world to cultivate our connection with Krishna and help others do the same.
But with all the distractions of modern life, it's easy to get caught up in material pursuits.
Yeah.
What are some of the anchors that keep us tethered to this world?
The book highlights 5 main chains that bind us.
Okay.
Attachment to the body, to family and possessions, to our homeland, to material science, and to religious forms without a true understanding of God. These attachments can be incredibly strong, but with determination and the guidance of a spiritual master, we can break free.
That's surrendering to the guru is a big part of that, right?
It's a crucial step. Swami Prabhupada quotes a verse from the scriptures. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord.
Wow.
He explains that surrendering to the guru is a step towards surrendering to Krishna himself.
That's a powerful statement. What about those lavish offerings we often see devotees making to their gurus? Is that really necessary?
It might seem extravagant to an outsider, but it reflects the guru's role as God's representative.
Okay.
If we honor a government representative as much as the government itself, we treat them accordingly. The same principle applies to the spiritual master. It's a symbolic gesture of respect and recognition.
Okay, I can see the logic there. What about the deity in the temple?
Yeah.
How does that fit into all of this? It can be confusing for someone outside the tradition.
It's a great question. Swami Prabhupada explains that the deity isn't meant to be worshipped as an idol, but as a tangible representation of Krishna.
Okay.
It helps devotees connect with him on a personal level and cultivate their devotion. Think of it as a focal point for meditation and prayer.
So it's not about worshiping a statue, but using it as a tool to connect with something deeper.
Exactly. It's about shifting our focus from the material to the spiritual.
Many people associate Hinduism with the caste system. Is the Hare Krishna movement trying to impose this on its followers?
That's a common misconception that Swami Prabhupada directly addresses. He clarifies that the movement doesn't impose the caste system, as it's often understood. Instead, it encourages individuals to develop qualities aligned with the 4 varnas, or social divisions.
Yeah.
Brahmanas, priests and teachers, Kshatriyas, warriors and administrators, Vaishyas, merchants and farmers, and Shudras, laborers and service providers,
Okay.
based on their inherent nature and work.
So it's more about recognizing the different roles people play in society, not about a rigid hierarchy.
Precisely. It's about understanding our natural inclinations and using them to serve Krishna.
And what about women's liberation? How does that concept fit within the movement?
This is where things get really interesting. Swami Prabhupada actually critiques modern notions of female independence,
Really?
highlighting the exploitation and vulnerability that can come with it.
That's unexpected.
He presents a different vision of women's liberation within the context of Krishna consciousness, one based on spiritual growth and fulfillment, not just social or economic equality.
That definitely challenges the usual narrative. I'm curious to hear more about that.
It's a complex and nuanced topic, and we can definitely delve deeper into it later.
Hmm.
But first, let's explore some of the philosophical foundations of Krishna consciousness, particularly its perspective on truth and beauty.
Now we're talking, I'm always fascinated by how different cultures and traditions approach these fundamental concepts.
Yeah.
What does Krishna consciousness have to say about truth and beauty?
Well, Swami Prabhupada makes a distinction between the relative truth and beauty of the material world,
Okay.
which are temporary and fleeting, and the absolute truth and beauty of the spiritual realm, which are eternal and unchanging.
So are you saying that everything in the material world is inherently ugly?
Not necessarily. There's a certain beauty to be found in nature and human creativity. But according to Swami Prabhupada, that beauty is ultimately impermanent.
Right.
True beauty lies in the spiritual realm, in our connection with God.
That's a thought-provoking way to look at it. It challenges us to reevaluate our priorities.
It does. It makes us question what we truly value and where we find lasting fulfillment.
And speaking of impermanence, how does Krishna consciousness approach death? It's something we all have to face eventually.
Right. And the book offers some unique perspectives on this.
Oh.
It emphasizes that we should prepare for death while we're alive by cultivating spiritual knowledge and detaching ourselves from material possessions. Death, in this view, is not the end, but a transition to another state of being.
So it's not about fearing death, but embracing it as part of a larger spiritual journey.
Precisely. It's about shifting our focus from the temporary to the eternal.
But what about all the mistakes we make in this life?
Right.
Is there a way to atone for our sinful actions? Is forgiveness possible?
Swami Prabhupada talks about the importance of taking responsibility for our actions and seeking guidance from Scripture for appropriate remedies. It's not about punishment, but about learning from our mistakes and making amends.
So there's a path to redemption even for those who have strayed.
Absolutely. It's never too late to turn towards a more spiritual path.
This all sounds very compelling, but I'm sure the movement has faced its share of criticism and challenges,
Oh, yes.
especially coming from such a different cultural background.
Sure.
Let's talk about some of those, shall we?
Of course. There's a fascinating exchange in the book between Swami Prabhupada and a Professor Stahl regarding the practice of constant chanting.
Yeah.
The professor questions its necessity, and Swami Prabhupada presents scriptural evidence to support it.
So the chanting is more than just a catchy tune.
Yeah,
There's a deeper meaning behind it.
exactly. It's a powerful spiritual practice rooted in tradition, a tool for purifying the mind and connecting with Krishna.
And what about the criticisms regarding fake gurus and exploitation of spiritual seekers? That
Yeah.
seems to be a recurring theme with new spiritual movements.
Swami Prabhupada addresses this in a conversation with reporters. He emphasizes the importance of finding a genuine spiritual master and acknowledges that there will always be those who exploit others for personal gain. He also points out that only a small percentage of people are truly interested in pursuing a spiritual life.
So it's about being discerning, being cautious, but not letting fear stop us from seeking genuine spiritual guidance.
Exactly. Now, this might be where things get really interesting for you. How do you think Krishna consciousness views science and spirituality?
Oh boy.
Are they compatible or are they fundamentally at odds?
I have a feeling this is where things get controversial.
It could be.
The intersection of science and religion is always a fascinating area to explore.
Yeah.
What does Swami Prabhupada have to say about it?
Well, prepare to have your assumptions challenged. Swami Prabhupada actually criticizes the scientific theory that life originates from matter. He argues that life produces matter, not the other way around.
So it's a complete reversal of the prevailing scientific worldview.
Yes, he uses the analogy of a dead tree.
Okay.
Scientists can't bring it back to life by simply injecting it with chemicals. Something more than just matter is required.
That's a bold statement. So is he saying that we should abandon science altogether?
Not necessarily. He doesn't reject science completely, but encourages us to see it through a spiritual lens. He points out that even when scientists talk about nature's will, they're implying a consciousness behind those natural phenomena.
Right.
That consciousness, he argues, is kriseya.
So it's about recognizing the limitations of science and seeking a more holistic understanding that includes spiritual principles.
Yes.
That's a fascinating perspective. And I have a feeling this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, right?
Absolutely. We've only just begun to scratch the surface, but this gives us a good foundation to explore some of the more nuanced and perhaps the controversial aspects of this movement.
Well, then I guess we'll have to keep diving deeper.
We will.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Hare Krishna movement.
It's a pleasure.
Until next time, keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about like the basic ideas, but what really intrigues me is this emphasis on personal transformation. It's not just about like understanding Krishna consciousness intellectually, but actually putting it into practice.
Absolutely. It's about more than just accumulating knowledge. Swami Prabhupada is clear that real change comes from aligning our actions with these teachings. That's where practices like chanting service and study come in. They're tools to help us shift our consciousness and become more aligned with Krishna.
So is it like a training program for the soul?
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
It's about cultivating qualities like humility, compassion, and selfless service, qualities that bring us closer to God.
But that can't be easy, right? I mean, we're so used to operating from a place of ego and self-interest. How do you overcome that?
It definitely takes effort and dedication. It's not a quick fix. There will be challenges and setbacks along the way.
Right.
That's where the guidance of a spiritual master and the support of a community are so important. You need that network of people who are striving for the same goal to help you stay on track.
It's like having a support system to keep you motivated and accountable. Which brings up the concept of karma.
Okay.
It seems like a big deal in Eastern philosophy. How does Swami Prabhupada explain it?
He addresses the common misconception of karma as some kind of cosmic punishment. Instead, he presents it as the law of action and reaction. Every action has a consequence, whether good or bad.
Okay.
It's not about being punished, but about experiencing the natural consequences of our choices.
So it's more like a cause and effect system operating on a spiritual level.
Exactly. And the goal of spiritual practice in this context is to transcend this cycle of karma, to break free from the endless rounds of birth and death.
Which brings us to reincarnation.
Right.
It's a concept that many Westerners find intriguing, but also a bit mind-boggling. How does Swami Prabhupada explain this idea?
He uses a simple analogy to make it more understandable.
Okay.
He compares it to changing clothes. When our clothes get old and worn out, we discard them and put on new ones. Similarly, when our bodies become old and unusable, the soul transmigrates to a new body.
So it's not our personality or memories that are reborn, but the soul itself continues its journey.
That's the idea. And the type of body we receive in the next life is determined by our karma, by the actions we've performed in this life.
So our actions have consequences that extend beyond this lifetime. Makes you think twice about those questionable choices.
It definitely adds a new dimension to personal responsibility. But the good news is that through spiritual practice, we can purify our karma and ultimately break free from this cycle of reincarnation.
There's hope. even for those of us who haven't always made the best choices. Now let's talk about something a bit more practical.
Okay.
Vegetarianism seems to be a big part of the Hare Krishna movement.
Yeah.
Is that a requirement?
Yes, it is. And there are several reasons for that. Primarily, it stems from the principle of ahimsa or nonviolence, which is central to Krishna consciousness.
That makes sense ethically.
Yeah.
But is there a spiritual component to it as well?
Absolutely. Swami Prabhupada explains that a vegetarian diet is more conducive to spiritual growth. Eating meat, he argues, increases aggression and attachment to material desires. A plant-based diet, on the other hand, helps purify the mind and body, making it easier to connect with Krishna.
So it's about creating inner harmony to be more receptive to spiritual practice.
Exactly. It's not just what we eat, but the consciousness with which we eat it.
Right.
It's about recognizing the sacredness of all life.
It's interesting how this movement approaches every aspect of life with such intentionality. There's an awareness of our connection to something larger than ourselves.
You've hit on a key point. It's not about compartmentalizing spirituality, but about integrating it into every aspect of our existence. It's about seeing God in everything, in the beauty of nature, in the kindness of others, and even in the challenges we face.
So it's about cultivating constant awareness, that sense of wonder and gratitude.
Precisely. It's about remembering that we're not just material beings stumbling through a meaningless existence. We're spiritual beings on a journey back to our true home.
But if we're all part of this divine oneness, why is there so much suffering in the world? This question has troubled humanity for centuries.
It's a difficult question, and Swami Prabhupada doesn't offer easy answers. He explains that suffering is a natural consequence of our separation from God. When we forget our true nature and become absorbed in the material world, we inevitably experience pain, disappointment, and loss.
So we create our own suffering by turning away from the source of true happiness.
In a way, yes. But it's not about blame. It's about understanding that we have the power to change our experience by reconnecting with Krishna.
So suffering is not our destiny, but a symptom of our spiritual disconnection.
Exactly. And the path to healing is through spiritual practice. It's about cultivating a loving relationship with God.
But how do we reconcile the idea of a loving God with the existence of evil and suffering? It seems like a paradox.
Swami Prabhupada addresses this by explaining that God doesn't interfere with our free will. He's giving us the freedom to choose our path, even if it leads to suffering. But he's also provided us with the tools and guidance to find our way back to him.
So he's given us a map, but we have to choose to follow it. We can't blame him for getting lost along the way.
That's a great way to put it. It's about taking responsibility for our choices and recognizing that we have the power to create our own destiny, both in this life and the next.
Okay, so we've discussed the philosophy, the practices, and the challenges. But what about the impact of the Hare Krishna movement on Western culture? It's left a mark from music and art to dietary choices.
Absolutely. It's fascinating to see how this movement, which started with one man and a trunk of books, has permeated so many aspects of Western society.
You can't deny the power of the Hare Krishna chant. It's become a global phenomenon crossing cultural and religious boundaries.
It's true. And beyond the music, the movement has influenced Western attitudes toward vegetarianism, yoga, and meditation. Practices once seen as exotic and fringe are now mainstream.
It's as if Swami Prabhupada brought a whole new perspective on life to the West, one that resonated with millions.
And it continues to evolve and adapt. The Hare Krishna movement today is a diverse global community with temples and centers worldwide.
It's a testament to the enduring power of its message.
It is
This human yearning for connection, for purpose, for something beyond the material world.
It reminds us that we're all spiritual beings at our core. The path to true happiness lies in reawakening that innate connection with the divine.
What about those of us who aren't ready to embrace the Hare Krishna lifestyle fully?
Sure.
Is there still something we can glean from this deep dive?
Definitely. Even if we don't become devotees, we can learn from the principles and practices of Krishna consciousness. We can cultivate more compassion and nonviolence, explore the benefits of a vegetarian diet, and find ways to integrate mindfulness and gratitude into our daily routines.
So it's about taking those nuggets of wisdom and applying them to our own individual journey.
Exactly. It's not about rigid dogma, but about finding the path that leads to greater peace, purpose, and connection. That's a journey worth embarking on no matter where we start.
You know, thinking about Swami Prabhupada arriving in the 60s, it was such a turbulent time, a period of intense social and political change.
Yeah.
How do you think his message resonated with people back then?
Well, it was a time when many were questioning authority and traditional institutions.
Right.
They were searching for meaning and purpose. And I think Swami Prabhupada offered a radical alternative, a path to spiritual liberation that directly challenged the prevailing materialistic worldview.
It wasn't just the counterculture movement that was drawn to his message, though, was it?
No, not at all. He attracted people from all walks of life.
Right.
Students, artists, intellectuals, even scientists were drawn to his teachings. They resonated with those who felt something was missing in their lives, something that the material world just couldn't provide.
It's remarkable how he was able to connect with people from such diverse backgrounds. It speaks to the universal appeal of his message.
Absolutely. At its core, Krishna consciousness is about love and reconnecting with our true nature as spiritual beings.
Right.
That message transcends cultural and religious differences.
And that message feels incredibly relevant today. Maybe even more so in our fast-paced, tech-driven world.
Right.
It's so easy to get caught up in the constant stream of information and stimulation. We lose sight of what truly matters.
That's why practices like chanting and meditation are so valuable. They help us slow down, quiet the mind, and reconnect with that inner peace that's always there.
It's like hitting the pause button on the chaos of modern life and remembering that there's something more, something deeper.
Exactly. And it doesn't require a complete lifestyle overhaul. We can incorporate these practices into our lives in small ways.
Right.
Starting with a few minutes of meditation each day, or simply taking a moment to appreciate the beauty of nature.
It's about those small shifts in perspective that can have a ripple effect on our lives.
Yes, it's a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
There's always more to learn, more to experience, more to grow into.
So where do we go from here? We've explored the origins and philosophy of the Hare Krishna movement, delved into its practices, considered the criticisms, and discussed its impact on Western culture. What's the takeaway for our listeners? What's that nugget of wisdom they can take with them?
If I had to distill it down to one key takeaway, it's this. We are not just material beings. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And we have the power to choose how we want to experience that journey. We can get caught up in the illusion of the material world or seek a deep connection with something greater than ourselves.
So it's about remembering who we truly are, recognizing that spark of divinity within each of us.
Exactly. And it's about aligning our choices with that truth. Cultivating love, compassion, and service, not just for ourselves, but for all beings. Recognizing that we're all interconnected.
That's a beautiful thought to leave our listeners with. It reminds us that even amidst life's chaos and uncertainty, there's a deeper harmony, a profound beauty. We just need to open our hearts and minds to it.
Well said.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the Hare Krishna movement. It's been a fascinating journey.
My pleasure.
And to our listeners, until next time, keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.